So just so that we get to know who's in the room, I'm going to invite you to either stand or raise your hand, whatever is more comfortable, if what I say applies to you, okay? And when people stand, I also invite you to look around the room so that you get to know people a little bit more, okay? So please stand if you were born in Edmonton. Yay, we have Edmontonians at heart. Okay, thank you. Please stand if you were born in another part of Alberta. Nope. In another part of Canada, please stand. No. Okay. How many of you were born in Asia? Please stand. Please stand. Oh, yeah. It seems to be the majority of the room. Surprise, surprise. Wonderful. Please sit. Okay. So how many of you were born in Southeast Asia? Like what would be Southeast Asia? Southeast Asia. What country? Shout out what country you're from. Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, Vietnam, Philippines, Highland, okay. Brunei, ooh. Okay, are we missing any? No? Okay, thank you. You can sit. How about anyone from the Americas, like US or Middle South America? No? Okay. Europe? No. Africa? Oceania? Any other? Oh, yes. Other parts of Asia. So South Asia, West Asia. Yes. India. Wonderful. Thank you. I missed that. Okay. Did we miss anybody? China. Please stand if you're from China or Hong Kong. Thank you. My goodness. Excellent. Okay. Please have a seat. Sorry? Oh. Okay. How many of you have been here, like your family has been here for more than 2 generations? Please stand. So you more than your generation and your parents' generations. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay. How many of you have been here for more than 3 generations? Oh, wow. Yeah, Kali. Congratulations. All right. Thank you very much. Is there something that you want to know from other people in this room? Is there something that you want to know from other people in this room that I can ask on your behalf?
You're part of an organization.
Okay. Please stand if you're part of a grassroots community organization. Thank you. Okay. So about half of the room. Okay. Excellent. Please stand if you are part of a like community, like service provider or government, let's say. Anybody? Yes. Okay. Okay. So 7 or 8 of you. Please stand if you are in business, corporation, for-profit. Okay, yeah, 4 or 5 of you. Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to do a quick icebreaker so that you get to know a little bit of who's in the room. Thanks.
Those who have been elected or are planning to run for election.
Okay, please stand or raise your hand if you have been elected or are planning to run for election. Oh, Teresa was MLA before and school board trustee, and you're planning to run for election?
Yeah.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. Anything else? We good?
That's it.
Okay, my job is done. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And good afternoon, 30 minutes to go. We are ready for our panel soon. We will be calling on Teresa, our chair. But before that, can I ask everyone to raise their right hand and tap the shoulder of the person to your right? It's the Friday afternoon to your right, and tell them, are you ready? Yes, you can tap me. Raise your left hand and tap the shoulder of the person to your left and say, I am more ready than you. So are we ready? Are we ready to listen and share? Okay, so I'll give the floor to our chair of ACCT Foundation and Act to End Racism, Teresa Wu Pa. Do you want the...
Good evening, everyone. It's very heartwarming, actually, to see so many of you take time out on a Friday evening to join in this community dialogue. It's much appreciated from Action. Do I have the right organization? Action Chinese Canadian Together and the Act to End Racism, Asian Canadians Together, Act to End Racism Network. So the Intercultural Dialogues on Successful Integration, Resiliency, and Community Building Initiative on behalf of Action Chinese Canadian Together and the Network. This initiative is supported by the Government of Alberta's Ethnocultural and Anti-Racism Grant, which support community initiatives to increase cultural and cross-cultural awareness and to educate Albertans to prevent and address racism. While Alberta continues to be a place of opportunity for waves of immigrants and racial minority communities, the path to full settlements for newcomers and the full and meaningful integration of racialized Canadians can be an arduous and challenging journey. The 2020 Angus Reid Institute survey found the majority of the 550 Canadians of Chinese descent surveyed feel blame for the pandemic, and only 1 in 10, that's 13%, believing others in Canada see them as fully Canadian all the time, despite the long-standing presence in Canadian society for over 160 years. As the fastest growing population in Alberta and Canada, the Filipino community constitute up to 30% of the workforce in some of the health service settings and in many other important sectors. Chinese, Vietnamese, and Filipino Canadians make up a substantial portion of the workforce in food and health services sectors as essential workers. Together with the Japanese and Korean Canadian communities, we've been providing support to Canadians during challenging times as well as time of prosperity. Yet we have been blamed, scapegoated, and mistreated. Our contributions, participations, and resilience, whether recent or historical, are largely unrecognized. So the project aims to increase knowledge on the focused communities' development, participation, and contributions to Alberta and Canada amongst our communities, as well as in key systems, such as in education, social, and academia. So for Asian Canadians communities to develop a better understanding on the dynamic development and experience as a people in Alberta, the collective journeys of the communities need to be shared, heard, explored, examined, and better understood. Through dialogue, conversations, we hope to spark imagination and inspiration, generate greater insights and understanding of the context and issues that impact our realities at the individual, community, and also systemic levels. Our communities are diverse and complex. So the diversity and the complexity, resilience of our communities demonstrated through community actions over the past half to 1.5 century will be better understood by Alberta communities and entities, as well as hopefully through your participation here, the rest of our community also would become more aware about our collective experience and impact on the development of Alberta and Canada. So through the sharing of the diverse experience amongst members from the East and Southeast Asian Canadian communities, and the panel comprised of people from the 5 communities with various extensive experiences from a wide spectrum of sectors, from the arts and culture, community building and organizing, engagement with youth and women, legal practices, and public offices and public services, from our engagement in systemic and institutional change, serve as a conversation starter today. We hope all of us together will provoke ideas for greater engagement and in impactful change. And on a related note, Bang wants to make sure that I speak on this. So during the pandemic, I actually met every Monday for 2.5 years with people from the Filipino, Vietnamese, Korean, and Japanese and Chinese community from across the country to share experience and work together to react to respond to address anti-Asian racism. And during that time, members of the Asian Canadians Together Act to End Racism network shared the desire to tell their stories, their contributions to the building and development of our community, our province, and our country. So after they expressed their interest, we continued to work on that idea with a group of younger Canadians, Asian Canadians, and the conversation evolved into the No Canada Without Me, or No Alberta Without Me campaign. So through this campaign, we would like to invite all Canadians, especially Asian Canadians, to share how your family, how your community have contributed to the building of our country, the building of Alberta. So I hope following the dialogue today, you would also partake in sharing how you and your community have contributed to the development of Alberta and Canada. So thank you again for taking time to be here to partake in the dialogue. I look forward to our conversation. I look forward to learning from all of you and in the capital of Alberta. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I'd like to call on Carly Okamura for our land acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. As the panelist tonight representing Edmonton, I've been asked to provide the land acknowledgement, and I'm very honored to do so. The lands on which Edmonton sits and a North Saskatchewan river that runs through it have been the sites of natural abundance, ceremony and culture, travel and rest, relationship building, making and trading for Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. Edmonton is located within Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta. We acknowledge this land as traditional territories of many First Nations, such as Nehio, Denisolene, Nakota Sioux, Anishinaabe, and Niitsitapi. The reason for our meeting today is to learn and understand and celebrate more about us, our community, and the communities that are part of the Asian Canadian community of Alberta, or more specifically, here in Treaty 6, Edmonton.
Thanks, Carly. So just following that, we acknowledge the need for meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities. Our group did this on October 22 in Mohkinstsis, Calgary. That's Calgary. When we engaged and consulted with 3 elders, Elder Adrian Wolfleg of Siksika Nation, Elder Gilbert Crowchild, Tsuut'ina Nation, and Elder Rod Hunter of Bearspaw First Nation. So encourage our communities to start integrating truth and reconciliation in their projects, if you haven't yet, as part of your organization and in your settlement and integration. This means integrating it even with your personal lives, talking to your families about it. And then today we call upon our collective culture and traditions to work together, build relationships, have deeper and meaningful collaborations that crosses cultures and generations to create an inclusive space for everyone who consider Alberta and Canada their home. So thank you. Thanks, Carly. So before I introduce our esteemed panel, can I just ask why this table is empty? I promise you there's no trick here. Those are perfectly working chairs. So, so now we call on our panelists. Please don't scare them. I'm going to go with an alphabetical order. So Anne-Marie Pham, you're first. Anne-Marie Pham is the CEO of Canadian Center for Diversity. Diversity and Inclusion. Yes, Center for Diversity Inclusion. Anna Ko is our Executive Director for Calgary Koreans Women's Association. That's Anna. Cesar Cala is the board chairperson of Filipinos Rising. So that's short for FRIENDS, or FRIENDS is Filipinos Rising for Inclusion and Equity to Nurture Democracy. We have Carly Okamura. She's the president of 2 Japanese drumming groups here in Edmonton, and also the co-chair of Edmonton Japanese Canadian Association's Committee on Human Rights. Next, we have Jay Shim, who is a lawyer who is very passionate on multiculturalism, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Jay, do you get the center seat? This is like a beauty pageant. Next, we have Marichu Antonio, who's the former executive director of Action Dignity and also the advisor of Association of Filipino Canadian Community Leaders of Rural Alberta. Patty Pon, who is the CEO of Calgary Arts Development Authority, and of course, Teresa Wu Paul, our chairperson of ACCT Foundation and Act to End Racism.
Oh, it's me. Okay. Okay. As the way we have organized the session for today, we'll start with a little bit of storytelling from the panelists, and then we'll be inviting more conversations across our communities and from your own different experiences. So we have asked the panelists to share a little bit about their experiences, especially on specific themes that they want to focus on. Right? So this is the first round, so I can call on Teresa will be first, right? And then Patty afterwards. Okay. Oops.
So the easy way to actually determine the ordering was we did a draw. So it's by luck that I'm starting first. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to share with you my journey and learnings to help to set the stage for our community dialogue today. Because I could easily be speaking with you for an entire evening. So I'm going to stick with my notes so that I would not take all the time. So I would like to perhaps amplify a few key themes, I guess, the 4 to 5 minutes that I have. I would like to amplify what I summarize from my journey over the past 50 years or so is the connections between the personal to the community involvements to system, institutional engagement and change. From addressing diversity at the ground, at the grassroots level, to diversity in leadership. So while I am of first generation Chinese Canadian, my family immigrated to Canada in 1972, before some of you in this room were born. And so I've been here for 52 years. As part of a community that have been here since 1788. First major wave of immigration of Chinese was 1855. I'm also fourth generation, actually, in North America, because both of my great-grandfathers immigrated to North America as laborers. And so that also meant that my grandfathers were experienced decades of isolation and separation from their families due to racist laws, such as the Chinese head tax and the Exclusion Act. My grandparents were separated for 33 years, and my father never met my grandfather until he was 41 years old at the Calgary airport. So my family was affected by this legislation, and my family experienced intergenerational trauma with decades of separation and isolations. So also, I have about over 100 family members in the province of Alberta. When we get together, we now need name tags, because I've never met some of my cousins' children. So, but I also have members of my family who describe their experience of settlement as they have become blind, they become deaf, and mute, because they have language barriers. So I have family members experience and endure linguistic, social, and cultural barriers. I have a degree in social work, and I was trained as an anti-discrimination trainer. And these are important, some of the highlight of my personal experience that I think have impacted my community work and some of my involvement in Alberta. But I would like to highlight a few themes from this. Is, first of all, I see the hardships that my family, my community had to endure. They have become sources of empowerment for me. Because when I became the first school board trustee of Asian descent, it can be intimidating to walk in a place where you don't see any other people like you. And but then knowing that my community have been here for 150 years, my family have been here for generations, that give you a sense of empowerment and confidence. So, and then I like to also highlight, as I think if not 100%, most of us are of Asian descent here, we believe and value modesty. And that includes the modesty to claim our contribution and place in society. And I want to highlight that does not serve us very well. So I think that we need to balance our valuing of modesty to also claiming our rightful place in Canada. So that's two of my highlights from that. I'm going to very briefly touch on my community work, which is I continue to be very passionate about, which I have spent 50 years of my life doing. I have founded and built 8 nonprofit organizations, and partly because of my family's experience that I founded those organizations. So I founded between 1980 to 2007, for about 30 years. I spent 26 years as the unpaid volunteer coordinator of the Chinese Community Service Association. And then I started an organization for the Society for Cultural and Multicultural Programs. I'm not going to tell you all the work I did, but this one was important because this one was, I organized cultural and multicultural camps for children and youth. This is where I learned, this is what I try to foster, cultural appreciation of our children's cultural heritage and develop positive identity. This is where I heard from children that told me, as Chinese Canadians, we should not be born in this country. I experienced how our children is torn by the marginalization and the racism that they experience in this country, and without the support and vocabulary to actually articulate and be supported with their experiences. So, and then I work with many communities. When the Sikh community, the Black Women Collective, and my organization, we all failed to get money to support women who experience violence. We decided, well, if we cannot get the money individually, we work together. So we started working together, and so I started to work with other, like Vietnamese, Japanese, and the Sikh community. But I want to emphasize, I think some of the theme from this is from working with our communities. Then I think I had the opportunity to listen to thousands of our community members who have experienced hardships, who have experienced injustice, and who have experienced mistreatments that actually have no voice. And but those learnings from our community's lived experience become very powerful stories. They become compelling rationales. They become compelling voices and powerful ammunitions that you can work from the micro to the macro level of involvement. So, and also I would like to encourage especially young people to consider volunteering in your own community, as that is really strong grounding. My God, you gave me the sign before I actually get to my main point. Okay, all right. So I need to skip a few points, and I'm gonna get to my last point. Now, so as you know, I was the first Asian Canadian woman elected to the school board for 5 years, and then I was an MLA and a minister in the Alberta legislature for 7 years. That's what, but then I feel that I have to give you a little bit about myself before I could talk about that. And I want to talk about that because since I was elected in 2008 to this point, I've never talked about my work in office. And we're not going to analyze why. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about the need for diversity in leadership in the public arena. And I want to take a little bit of time at the cost of my colleagues, I'm sorry, to share with you, what can you do in public office? Because we don't have a lot of opportunity to talk about what is it that we do in public office. And I think in part it's because I'm an Asian woman that I actually don't talk about this. So when I was at the school board, well, the first one is not the happy one. So I got elected, my first election, my first win. I received a letter, and it was not a nice letter. The letter actually called me the yellow peril. But then, as trustee, I got to question senior leadership. I ran for trustee because the school board cut spending across the board by 3%. They cut English as second language by 50%. And you know why? Because they know immigrant parents have no way of defending and fighting for their children. So as a trustee, I had the opportunity to question senior leadership on the treatment of ESL funding and educational services. And of course, they don't answer my question. And then I questioned the most powerful chief superintendent of school in this province. And I asked them, so what have you done for English as second language? And they had to admit they did nothing. But then later, the Calgary Board of Education injected $3 million back in the English as second language because of I'm in the system, and there's a coalition outside the system. And then we passed the Chinese bilingual program. And so we passed it in the 1990s, and it is one of the most demanding programs in the system right now. So we advocated for adequate support for Indigenous students. We provided access. When I was a trustee, I got calls from both the parents from the separate and the Catholic system because they have no one else to call. So as a MLA, the province was commissioned a study on seniors policies, 39 pages, and they did not talk about immigrants. They did not talk about racialized immigrants. And so when you are not at the table, then our issues, our needs, our perspective, our worldviews are not at the table. So, getting last warning. So as an MLA, I got to actually celebrate Asian Heritage Month at the legislature through a private member motion, raised the issue of diversity. I saved the Human Rights Code 3 times. And I want to maybe wrap up by saying we need to encourage and nurture and work collectively to get our people elected to public offices, because the impact of representation, like I said, is then because we have no voice in the system, we will have no champion in the system, and you have no champion in the system. And the barriers and the bias embedded in this institution are perpetuated every single day. And so we have to recognize power as a necessary tool for influence and change, and we need change in this province and in this country. Understand political office as the means and not the ends. Because this is the means to make change. And this is the means for you, when you break the ceiling, when you break the grounds, you open doors for others.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
And sorry to my colleagues.
Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Good way to get us started. First off, thank you very much, Beng, for introducing me. However, whenever I'm in a room of new friends, I introduce myself in three ways. So good evening, my name is Patty Pond. My job is the president and CEO of Calgary Arts Development, which is the local arts funding agency for the city of Calgary. Oki Natanako Mista Motsamyaki. That is my Blackfoot name. In 2022, I was gifted a name by a Gaina elder, and that the name means two standing headdress woman for all the hats I wear in my community. And then the third one is Ni Hao, Mameang Ngathlongo. And the only other phrase I know in Chinese is Sikong. And so I am a second generation Canadian. I was born in Calgary. My mom was born in rural Alberta, in Castor, Alberta. My dad emigrated to Canada from Taisan in the 1950s. And he was sent here to find his dad, who he had never met. And he was also sent here because my grandmother was afraid of what would happen if he stayed in China, because at that time the conflict between Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong was starting. And she sent him away to Gold Mountain to find his dad and make his fortune, which is the story that we hear so often in Chinese communities, in particular in the communities I work in. But I tell you those stories because I am in a position where I get to meet new people and new friends, and I get to tell you something about me. And I do that because then I want to know something about you. I want to encourage you. You are not your job title. You're so much more than that. If I talk with my friends in the Blackfoot community in the Treaty 7 area, Mohinstis, where we are from, they will tell, their introductions will go on for 20 minutes. And they tell me about their family and the ancestors and their mother, and they're a daughter and they're an aunt, and I'm involved in these things in my community. And I go, you know, that's the kind of introduction we need. And I say that to you because there's some statistics I want to tell you about. So Alberta, 4.8 million people as of July 1st, 4.9 actually, we're almost 5 million. In Alberta, 30% of that 4.9 million is visible minority. In Calgary, where I come from, visible minority is 40%. We will be over 50% visible minority within the next 24 months. In Edmonton, you are 45% visible minority. You will be over 50% in less than 12 months. You will be the majority of Edmontonians in a year. There is a municipal election next year. And I say that because while I'm very, very proud, even though I don't speak Chinese, of my Chinese heritage, I'm more proud that I am part of a community that welcomes everybody from everywhere and doesn't do it like, and this might be the bad thing, the US, where it's a melting pot. You all show up, you're all the same, you all do everything the same. In Canada, we talk about ourselves being a cultural mosaic. A mosaic where each little piece comes together to make a beautiful picture. That's Canada. That's what Alberta could be. But we have to know each other beyond our community as the Chinese community, or the Filipino community, or the Arab community. We need to know ourselves as Albertans, or as Edmontonians, or as Calgarians, who can make a difference. And you can make a difference. And so tonight is about introducing you to some new people and maybe some new friends, and maybe deepening a friendship or a relationship with the friends you already have, because you will make a difference. And when we talk about the Indigenous journey that Bang started us with today, and Carly with our land acknowledgement, Edmonton has the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada. So back to that visible minority, right? That includes Indigenous people. It is incumbent on all of us. Just do the math. Just count the numbers. That's the difference. That as communities, we can make coming together and sharing and building a community for all of us. Now, I'll just finish up 2 very short stories. So, as the head of Calgary Arts Development, I have a budget of $20 million. We grant $15 million, over 670 grants. My friend here from the Edmonton Arts Council, friends from the Edmonton Art Council, about the same size. We have a lot of influence. We are women of color. We can make decisions. And to Teresa's point, when you sit in these chairs, you have the ability to make those decisions that, when I said Edmonton's 45% visible minority, do you think the corporate offices in Edmonton are 45% visible minority in the lead offices? City Council, 45% visible minority? Are the leaders in the nonprofit community 45% visible? Not yet. So for those of us and those of you who I know are in this room who are CEOs and executive directors, hold your ground. And when you do, you are the person who gets phone calls and text messages from the mayor and from councillors and from leaders in the community, because you stand your ground and you share your identity. Don't let how things were or how things are be the thing that makes you not be who you are. And that includes what you look like. Everyone knows I'm a minority. The second they see me, it's not like I can hide it. So I celebrate it. And I encourage all of you to do that. And we'll talk more about that later on. Last thing, I don't know, you probably heard of a small thing in Calgary called the Calgary Stampede. I was elected to the board. I was the first woman of color in 112 years. And I was elected in 2020. Thank you. Hold that applause. Hilson, if you can, yeah. So I just want to show you, I asked Hilson to put up some photos. So elected in 112 years, right? So it's a $30 million organization. I told you I was born and raised in Calgary. So that's me on your right-hand side. Stampede's a pretty big part of my memory as a kid, growing up in Calgary. And then last summer, that's me getting ready to ride my horse in the Stampede Parade. And so it's a part of who I am. And the tenure on the board is three-year terms, 9 years. I was up for re-election last year, and I lost. And the person who won, white, male, a name more easily English than mine, works in the energy sector. And everybody at the Stampede said, no, that's not it, that's not why. 3 people of color before me didn't even make it to get elected the first time, never mind get reelected. So if we think that the doors are open for us, that it's easy to get in these things, it's not. And you have to keep going. And these setbacks will happen. But remind yourself of who you are and all the identities that you bring with you. And when you build your circle, you become stronger. You become more a part where that's your identity, and you should be able to celebrate it any way you want, than making it something that other people say you are. You're immigrant. You're not a full English speaker. You're such a small minority because you only come from the, I can't say Chinese community because we're the biggest visible minority in Alberta, but there are others, right? you are part of a much, much bigger story. So I'll leave it with that and hand it off to Cesar.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Teresa and Patty. Multi-generational perspective from the Chinese Canadian community. So now we have Carly. Carly is a third generation or fourth generation Canadian Albertan of Japanese background and wants to share her own story.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So yes, I'm representing the Edmonton Japanese Community Association tonight. Any Japanese Canadians in the room? Yay! Thank you. And you know, this is a little bit representative of our situation here in Alberta. But before that, I will speak about myself. As he said, I'm a fourth generation mixed race Japanese Canadian. My great grandfather was the one who immigrated, and at that time we were the fourth family to have a farm in the Surrey Delta area. And just like the 23,000 other Japanese Canadians who were interned during World War II, my family had that property seized from them, and they were shipped across the country and forced to work in sugar beet camps in the prairies. And this traumatic event in our community really has informed the future from then. And my experience with my family represents that as well. For my father, who was born in the 50s, they all have English names. They did not learn Japanese, and he joined the Boy Scouts, and he joined football, and he grew up as a, Canadian, and they didn't think about their culture. And when I was born, I thought about my culture, and I was curious, and I wanted to know, but at that point, we're separated from my grandparents, and we're separated from a larger community, and we're kind of strewn around in small communities. So it's very difficult to keep cultural knowledge and language and other such things to keep the community robust. So in comparison to our neighbor Asian communities represented in this room, the Japanese community is extremely small in all the Albertan cities comparatively. It's quite elderly. And because of this traumatic event that informed the third and fourth generations, one of the key things we're missing is the language transmission. And that has a really big impact with how you can connect. Additionally, the rate of out-marriage, marrying outside of your culture is 75% for us. So it's also, while it makes wonderful mixed-race children, it is difficult to maintain culture in that way also. So growing up, because I didn't have this connection, the one thing that I found was Japanese drumming, or taiko, and you may have seen it performed around town. I've been doing that since I was a teenager. And when I started to drum, that's how I found the Edmonton Japanese Community Association. And that's how I found any connection to community at all. But I really appreciate being a part of that community. I often represent in cultural events like this one. And I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about Alberta communities, my own family, and the Japanese Canadian story in general. So it has been a wonderful learning experience, but I've done it all in my adulthood. So I feel like I'm still just starting to learn things, but I also feel like a tourist to my own culture, and it can be very uncomfortable, particularly when there are a lot of people in Canada and around the world who love Japanese culture in Japan and dedicate a lot of their life to travel there and learn about it, where it's something Japanese Canadians who are born in Canada might not get to do. And we run into strange stereotypes and strange interactions where you feel like you're less than because a lot of those cultural things haven't been uplifted in Canada. And so my experience along the way has been this kind of duality and not quite feeling like you fit in either way. But through the drumming and through the arts, I certainly feel that I have found my place in community, and I've had the opportunity to meet lots of wonderful people. Excuse me. My main project that I do with drumming is a multidisciplinary Pan-Asian stage production, and it's called The Model Minority. This is a tongue-in-cheek name. And what that means is that we choose a topic for the Asian Canadian community, such as anti-Asian racism during COVID, and we get together with artists from all different communities and all different art forms, and then we put together a production that shares stories and feelings and experiences. And being able to come together like that has been very rewarding, and it's also meant that I can meet lots of artists in the other communities as well. So that's kind of the experience that I'm bringing, is being a fourth generation, dealing with culture loss, dealing with intergenerational trauma, and also expressing all of that through arts. And before I pass it on, I wanted to share a story about my family as well. So I mentioned that we had the property in Surrey. Of course, the old farm that we used to have is now several residential blocks of Surrey, and we were not able to sell it. It was taken, so that was something my family never really got over. But at the front of their farmhouse, there was a large boulder, and they were trying to break it up, so they tried to put fire and then ice, and they were trying to crack the boulder so they could move it, and they were never successful. And the boulder is still there in somebody's front yard in Surrey. So the family goes into the minivan and drives up in front of the boulder, and we all get out and take a picture in someone's front yard, and we all get back in again and drive off. And that just kind of makes me think about, you know, the stubborn nature of Japanese Canadians who are kind of scattered across the place. And for people like me who are trying to reach out and trying to still find the roots.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you for sharing your intergenerational stories of resilience. And to round up this first round, can I call on Anne-Marie to talk about her experience from the Vietnamese Canadian community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you know, before I start, I just wanted to also make an observation about the interesting threads of the conversation, where, you know, Teresa is from the Chinese community sharing her experiences. Patty is from the Chinese community sharing her experiences. They both are leaders in the community, and then Patty talks about the art, and then the connection of Patty to Carly, who's also talking about the art, but from the Japanese community, and your comment about the multi-generational perspective, which is what I would like to talk about as part of my piece here. So there's a thread, so even though each of our story is unique, there are common threads to our stories, right? And I'm sure that if you share your stories, and we will have time for all of you to share your stories later, we're going to have a larger community dialogue, and then we're going to break into small table conversations as well. So we're looking forward to learning from your community stories and experience later too. But I think collectively we have many common stories, challenges, and opportunities to build a more inclusive Alberta for all Asian Canadians. Okay, so my story is I was born in Vietnam when I was 3 years old. Our family moved to France because my dad had a post there at the Vietnamese embassy in France, and we were supposed to be there for 5 years. It was a 5-year post. So mom and dad, grandma, auntie, and 5 kids, I was kid number 4, all moved from Vietnam to France, and it was, of course, a big culture shock. I was only 3 years old at the time. And then we stayed in France, and then 2 years later, April 30th, 1975 happened, which is the fall of Saigon. And this is where North Vietnam took over South Vietnam, and basically the communists took over the whole Vietnam, right? So then our family could not go back to Vietnam, and we ended up being political refugees in France. My dad lost his post, and like many Asian immigrants, they opened a restaurant. So this restaurant in Fontainebleau, 1 hour from Paris, was a Vietnamese Chinese restaurant, and we ran it for about 10 years before we moved to Canada. And so I came to Canada at the age of 15, and I always say, Canada is my third country on my third continent, and English is my third language. But what was really interesting when I came to Calgary is that a lot of people, my French friends, said, oh, you're going to be fine going to Canada because you're going to Calgary, it's like a white community, you're used to the French culture, you can speak English, you have Western experience, all of that. But I actually found that in Canada, like I found it was harder to belong in Canada than it was in France. And the ESL, so for example, I will tell you, when I went into high school, right, the kids there automatically saw me as an immigrant, okay? Whereas in France, I grew up around people and everybody welcomed us. And there's also a close connection between the French and the Vietnamese because of the colonization, and French people really like Vietnamese people for whatever reason. So in Canada, it was very different. It was challenging. They never assessed my level. I was put into ESL right away, even though I took 4 years of English before coming here. They put me into the lower level of math and English. I got pulled out of social studies class to take ESL. I mean, it was a stigma. You try to fit in when you're a young person and you go there and it's very hard, right? So my parents were running a restaurant. They were not available. I had to advocate for myself to get back into math 10, English 10, social 10. They put me into the lower level. So that was hard. And even though, I wanted to hang out with the white kids, it was like this invisible wall. And so my friends were the immigrant kids. My friends were the ESL kids. And I love them, and they're still my friends to this day. But it gave me a sense of the difficulty of, integration, right? And it was in Calgary that I finally found the Vietnamese community. And then I learned, I'm a late cultural bloomer, I learned about the Vietnamese community. But this experience and other experience over the course of my time in Canada, led me to take sociology, led me to start a Vietnamese youth group in Calgary 22 years ago. 12 years ago, I also started a Calgary Diversity and Inclusion Network for employers and diversity practitioners in workplaces. And about 8 years ago, I also helped to start the Asian Professional Network of Calgary to help Asian professionals in Calgary break through the bamboo ceiling. Because these experiences of exclusion and inequities I not only experienced in school, but also in the workplace. And so I work for the Government of Canada's Racism-Free Workplace Strategy. I was a diversity advisor for the City of Calgary. And the last 3 years, I sat as a citizen volunteer on the Anti-Racism Action Committee. Currently, I work at the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, CCDI. It's a national charity where we work with over 700 employers across Canada to help them on their journey to become more inclusive, equitable, anti-racist, more accessible, right? But the challenge is rampant when it comes to anti-Asian racism, because I have to tell you that in many, many workplaces, they talk about very valid concerns of, say, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Black racism, other types of issues, but Asian issues are often the forgotten one. It is the invisible one. We are still seen as a model minority, and that we are the perfect immigrants. We work hard, we don't complain, and we are humble. Some of them see us as submissive. I have been told before, even as a CEO, to fill up their coffee for them, to take notes for them when they didn't know who I was, because I just looked the part of a helper or an assistant or something like that. So I think that there's a lot of stereotypes that we need to overcome, and we need to find ways to not be a bystander, but an upstander, and really challenge the norms, challenge the culture, and challenge the systems wherever you are, whether it's the workplace, in your schools, or in your communities. And I just want to do a shout out to Dr. Chi, Kovi, and all the members of the Vietnamese communities who so gracefully came here to support the event and share in the dialogue. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I've been taking on notes on the themes from the conversation. So with this first round, we'll have a few kind of more thematic questions that I have. I'll throw it to the panelists, but also to members of our audience. One is that these stories are so powerful, right? A source of both inspiration and insight and lessons, right? And a sense of community. So my question is, how can we tell our stories to the broader audience so that they become, of course, they are our community stories, but they can also become Canadian stories, right? So that our stories are not seen as exotic and novel, but as part of the mainstream narrative of community stories in Canada. Any thoughts on that? Yes. From us and from others? Yes.
Yeah, sure. I didn't mean to take yours. I meant to. That's okay. I'll take yours. Well, of course, my first impulse is to say through arts and through artistic productions. Of course, that's where my brain goes. But music, movement, and other art forms, visual arts, and so on, have a universal quality that people of any language and any background can appreciate. So that's what I think is the best way to communicate multiple kinds of stories and backgrounds.
Art. Who are artists here and who are arts backgrounds?
Oh, look at all the artists.
One of the tasks.
Well, following on that, three ideas came to mind, and two of them relates to the arts. So, as I'm sure that many of you are aware that May is Asian Heritage Month, and so that was I had the opportunity to work with Senator Vivian Poy to actually make that declaration in the Senate. So I think May is an opportunity to amplify our experience and stories through the arts, through engagement with different systems. ACCT actually sponsor over 100 teachers across Canada to talk about anti-racism, anti-Asian racism with students, to buy books for the classroom. I think so Asian Heritage Month is one way. Last year was the centenary of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So the community actually expressed the need to learn more about our own history and experience. So we put together an exhibition called Eating Bitterness. So it's currently being shown at the Alberta Legislature. So I think we have opportunity to actually either work with our community or work collaboratively to engage mainstream. I don't usually call them mainstream, I call them broad-based organizations because we are mainstream. Yeah. So we have opportunity to develop projects and work with the broad-based organization to get our story out there. Lastly, we're still exploring how big we want to make this No Canada Without Me campaign. I think it resonates with people as a platform to share your story. Then actually we hope that we'll continue and we'll find ways to collect the stories.
Can I say one thing?
Sure, yeah.
And then we'll look. Sorry, Bang. So yeah, I obviously have a bias for artists. Artists are our storytellers. They practice every day. But I talk about having a creative life, living a creative life. And creativity is not something that if you lost the DNA lottery, you're out of luck. Oh, I'm not an artist. Oh, I can't paint or draw or sing or anything. You read books. You garden. You cook. You have traditions and stories that you learned as you were growing up. You have stories to tell. And in Calgary, there's a store called Madame Premier. And they sell all kinds of inspirational products and things that really are asserting about women taking their power and using it. And one of the things they have is a book bag. And on the book bag, it says, "May you have the audacity of a mediocre white man." With all due respect, I have many, many white men in my life who I love dearly and I think are tremendous people. But you get the point. You need to have that audacity. Tell your stories. And don't do it, yes, Asian Heritage Month, but do it every other month.
Yeah.
You are 45% of this city. You have every right to tell your story at the water cooler, at the lunch office, when you're all sitting around shooting the breeze at your holiday parties. You can bring your lunch that is community specific. Just take every day to tell your story. Don't wait until May to do that. And then you find people like me and other artists like Carly who will hear your story and will help you amplify it. Or anybody here from ACCT.
Beautiful. I just
Sorry, can
Yeah.
you repeat the question just so if there's anyone from the audience who would like to share too? Your question, yeah.
No, the
Before
question
we
is
get- we
how
have-
do we bring our stories as a source of resilience for us and empowerment to the broader community so that they become Canadian stories, right? Aside from being Filipino or Chinese, Vietnamese stories, right?
We
Okay.
have 3 already after Anne-Marie.
Okay, very quickly here. A project from Asian Heritage Foundation that we did together in Calgary for the 150-year anniversary of Canada. We had a project called Missing Chapters. And we collected 150 stories of Asian Calgarians and their families and the history of their contributions. And we showcased that. It was in the news. We have an event. We had posters done. And it was a community history collection project. So I still remember that one. It meant a lot to me when I was part of creating the Missing Chapters project. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight as well is in the late 1970s, when there were so many Vietnamese boat people who were in refugee camps, you know, they were trying to escape Vietnam because of the war. At the time, the Ottawa mayor, Marion Dewar, was an incredible leader. And it reminds me of the things that we can do to be there for each other. At the time, the Canadian government was very reluctant to accept the Vietnamese refugees. But Marion Dewar, as the mayor of Ottawa, said, let's galvanize as citizens and let's try to sponsor the Vietnamese refugees as citizens. And she launched a project called Project 4000, which actually took root, and they were able to sponsor 4,000 Vietnamese refugees to Ottawa. Citizens did that. And after that, the government of Canada say, oh, if Ottawa can do it, we can do it too. Okay? So all to say that don't, underestimate the power of one person or a few people, that you can make a very, very big change in society.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
you.
We have Vanessa from the Filipino community.
Hi. We all love to eat. Everybody loves to eat. We all have our different cuisines, specialties, and stuff like that. I work with Higher Good community. We do serve the community members outside of the library, inside the library, like all the homeless community, addictions and stuff like that. And I always bring food to them. I buy them coffee, I bring them breakfast, whatever I have, I'll share it with them. And on that way, they learn, I introduced myself to them, I integrated myself to that community, and unfortunately, we lost the bidding. It's a long story, so I'm not gonna go to that one. It's more on the bureaucratic of the City Hall. So I share my food with them. They give me bannock. I love it. And I put some jam, I put some burgers and stuff like that on that one. And on that way, we share our culture with them. They know me as Vanessa, and they can come over and they will say, hey, Vanessa, I wanna drink coffee, or I wanna eat food. Come on, let's go. So in that way, I introduce me as a Filipino, and they know me that they can come always to me, and I can share food with them.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa. We have 3 more suggestions from the floor.
Conquer them by food.
Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm a mural artist situated here in Miskushi, Waskaigan. So what I will contribute to that, to the points that were brought up here is the importance of role models. So as youth and young kids, and even myself as an artist too, having seen the role models, the ones that were the generations before us, set the example and kind of paved the trailblaze the way, is a huge, huge influence. And that's how we just share our stories. Like if I could see somebody be able to do that, and they look like me, they share a culture like me, or there's some sort of common ground between me and them, role models is a great way to elevate our youth. So that's all I want to
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arts, food, the education system, role models. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jaja. I am going to stand because I hope you can all remember my face if you're in Edmonton. I am the community archivist at the City of Edmonton Archives.
Yay.
So my job is to do exactly what the questions asked, is to see how we can include more stories and preserve that in the archives. So I was really struck by what Patty said about 45% of population. So the City of Edmonton Archives, we're the official repository for the government of Edmonton art records, and also we collect records of organizations, individuals, families, and businesses of Edmonton. So we're supposed to be the repository to be preserving the stories of Edmonton. But of the 45% population, the archives honestly has maybe less than 10% of stories of people of color. Of everybody here, whatever your community is, I can say that you are very, very low representation in the archives. So my encouragement for everybody here is to do that. Think about your records, think about what you are leaving and preserving for generations, because if you want to be part of the narrative, it requires you to think about what you are leaving for future generations, so that when they come and research, when they come to do an exhibition, when they come to do a project, learn about their heritage, learn about their impact in Edmonton, they can come and find it, because right now they won't. So I hope you can reach out to me, because I'd love to connect with you and your organization. If you're not sure about it, think about your organization, about your family, and if your answer to this question is, what will you have in 50 years for people? And the answer is, we don't know, or nothing, then please reach out to me, because we're trying to preserve this material and this history. And I've talked to much too many people who've said we've just thrown it away. So please, now that you've all heard it, don't throw anything away. Do talk to me first. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beng?
Jaja. Her name is Jaja.
Okay. One more?
Thank you. And we have one last for this round.
First, I enjoyed listening to all of you, really inspiring speakers. And we do a few little things. For example, Seniors Week, for the last few years, we have been serving Southeast Asian street food, and then we published a small magazine called From There to Here, with stories of just a few people. And the other thing that we do is, for the last 24 years, we have been putting out this interfaith multicultural event. So getting to know other people and sharing with them our stories and hearing their stories. And you guys are really fantastic.
Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap up the first round, I just want to share, I just finished reading Malcolm Gladwell's Revenge of the Tipping Point book. You should read that. So what he was saying is that he looked at the history of how the Holocaust has been celebrated or even acknowledged in the US. Between 1945, when World War II ended, and 1975, very, very, very few conversations on the Holocaust. Very few, right? And one of the tipping points that he mentioned and researched was the mini-series that came out of an NBC production called The Holocaust, 1978. And after that mini-series on the Holocaust, artists, scriptwriters, researchers, historians put it all together. It was a one-week mini-series on the Holocaust, on how the 6 million Jews or 3 million Jews were murdered during World War II. 1978 was the tipping point, more than 30 years after the end of World War II. And after that, the tipping point, suddenly everyone's talking about the Holocaust. So we need to find a tipping point for our work, right? And many of the suggestions that you're saying, let's put our stories up front through the arts, through the public school system, through food, through the archives, public archives, through public events and conversations and collaboration. And that's the purpose of our conversation today or tonight. Okay, I know that we invited you quite late on Friday, so we have a bit of food. But we don't want to lose momentum. So please get food and come back after 5 minutes. We'll do the second
Everyone
round.
has 5 minutes.
5 minutes. But we will have a working dinner.
Okay, just to let everyone know, thank you, Cesar.
Thank you.
You have Post-its on your tables. That's for your ideas and suggestions if you don't want to speak on the microphone or if we miss you on one round. And just post it there. It can be anonymous. You can put your name and your organization and your contact details if you want.
All right. So let's start off with Anna Ko from the Korean community. Welcome, Anna.
Hi, thank you, Pam, and thank you, everybody. And I'm here about the different situations and different experience. I'm going to tell you just a few words for my experience, couple of things. One is I was still degrading one thing. Another one is I done it for the successfully. And I like to be every one of them here. You are the 45% of Edmontonians. So you are the important person. You ask yourself, why I'm here? I'm quite surprising this weather, Friday, you guys are here. We have a hope. Top of that, I think Korean community is here. This is another exciting. I think we have a big hope. And there's a couple things I like to yourself asking. What I'm gonna learn from today. These hours, 3 hours they spend here. Your hour is quite important, right? And I came to Canada in 1974. My kids born in Canada, and I worked in very beginning in factory. I was working in factory and every day 8 hours. I never been done in my country. I was so upset myself. What am I doing here? Why I'm working this kind of work? And what did I do? My parents spent the money and educating me and making them marry and come do this. I was thinking about that. And this is not right. I have to do something. And I don't know you guys the same situation or not. Women in the society doesn't accept. And 1974, we have a Korean community. Woman is not there. All men is powering. When you go to a woman, step in, they are not accepting. That woman is no good. She handle everything. And don't listen to her. And I was thinking about the more madding. Why? And why you guys do that? Anti-racism is not only society. Your society doing it yourself too. Think about it. A lot of different issues, small issues. And I fight, and I was keep going. And my kids, it was in 1980, I believe, Shah Cable TV came to Calgary. First of all, they opened a community channel. And then I said, this is a good chance I'm going to be express myself. And then I was an announcer. My husband was the first one, doesn't accept it. My kids was so happy. Every Saturday, they was sitting down there looking for mother to speak. And they was so proud. And My husband doesn't like it. I dragging 3 years, and end up I quit. I cannot do it. We got fighting and all those things. After 2 years, and our channel is gone. I still degrading that part of it. I should continue. Then we have a Korean channel in the Shah cable right now, but it's gone. We don't have any. If you wanna get in, you're gonna be big money to get in. And I'm gonna telling you, whatever you do right, don't give up. Continue doing it. You are the person can make a change. You are the person is more important than anything else. You think you're right? Let's do it. And let's change it. Think about your voice, how much power you got. We don't have a power very much, but we are together get the power. You are the one involved. I believe in Edmonton as a big hope. You are here. You are here, learn something. You're gonna be in the big part of it. Your voice is gonna be more stronger if we're together. I am gonna be finishing. I'm gonna hand on to Jay. I don't wanna spend your time too much. So, Jay.
Thank you, Anna. And I just want to also give Anna a shout out because she's very humble, but she's a very long time community leader in Calgary, running the Korean Women's Association and the art club too, right? I am a founder of what? Founder of the art club. And so she spent many decades building community in Calgary. Thank you. Jay, over to you.
Okay, I prefer to stand as well, especially especially in the public setting. My name is Jay. I'm from South Korea, 1.5 generation. And I came to Canada when I was 16 years old. I was a high school student. And my family is settled near town of Tabor. I'm not sure how many of you know small town. Oh, that's great. So when people talk about this is not fair to me, this is not just, justice is not to be done, not only to be done, but also seen to be done. What I mean by that is that, hypothetically speaking, let's say you face discrimination and racism from somebody else, and you're appearing before the decision makers. And there are 3 white decision makers who have no experience in racism or never had experience dealing with issues of racism. What are the chances that your case is going to go that far? I don't think it's going to go that far, despite the fact that we see systematic racism happening in our society. The justice system is not. This is not just a justice system problem, this is a societal problem. What I mean by that is that you see the composition of our panel here, somebody from the education, from the youth, from the community, from the arts, from the politics, from legal. Like, we all have to do our own part in order to change that. Like, there's a limitation. If you don't do anything right now, and when you faced some sort of discrimination or racism, and if you're seeking justice later on, it would be very difficult. I can tell you that it would be very difficult. The storytelling dialogue comes into play because what we are trying to do here is a social recognition. By sharing our stories, sharing your stories, engaging in some sort of dialogue, indicating that the Asian populations are part of Alberta or part of Canada. This is a social recognition that we all want to achieve together. I know that in the beginning, Anne-Marie says, like, how many of you from corporate, how many of you from the arts and science, politics? There's a meaningful questions because we all came from different countries, cultures, and those play a very important role in changing and shaping our societies. I opened up my small, medium-sized law firm in Calgary back 2014. One of the things that I value the most is multiculturalism and inclusion equity within my firm. What I mean by that is that we internally, we are able to speak about 20 different languages within our firm. So when I look at the resumes of the employees or candidates, I look at the diversities, how these people can contribute to our firm. That's what we need to do together. We need to contribute towards the society that we live in. So I want you to think about that. This is just the beginning. Like once we finish this session, we all go back to our daily life. But remember that you need to share your story so that collectively we're going to have a social recognition. And at that point in time, I think Cesar was talking about the tipping point. Everybody will talk about us, and we're going to be the part of this Alberta society. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jay. I think coming from you as somebody who really spent a lot of time growing up here, building your own business in law, and trying to do right within your own firm, like building a multicultural workforce and valuing equity and inclusion and diversity, where you have the most influence. I think it's very meaningful, it's very important. And I truly believe that each and every one of you, wherever you are working, wherever you are volunteering, what school you're going to, right? That you have your own sphere of influence and that you can change, whether it's at the team level, in your classroom, or recommend a change in policy with human resources. There are things that we can do to just advance equity and inclusion in a more meaningful way, right? Especially as Asian people, we often have this limitation that we're very humble, right? Many of us are raised in a culture where the good of the collective is greater than the good of the individual. And unfortunately, because of how, it's a wonderful trait, it's a beautiful value, but in a North American society, sometimes people don't understand us, right? And so to elevate our stories, to create our stories, to organize ourselves, to elevate the stories and to share them, I think is really important for us to create that tipping point. So thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much, Jay, for that. All right, last but not least, we have two incredible community leaders from the Filipino community. I've known you for a little over 22, 23 years, but you have done work way more than that. And so I would like to invite Mary Chu and Cesar to speak about your work in the community. Mary Chu?
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to stand up to make myself accessible. You see, I'm almost the same height as Jay here beside me. So for your benefit, I'm going to stand up. Anyway, so my name is Marichu Antonio. I was born in the Philippines. Like Patty here, I was gifted an indigenous name in 2021 of August. I was gifted by a Blackfoot elder after having worked with him for over 10 years while I was working as a former executive director of Action Dignity. And he named me a shorter name that's easier to remember. My name is Pitagi. And the Pitagi is a combination of two words. Agi, A-K-I-I, means woman, and Pita means eagle. So eagle woman. And as a community organizer, he likened me to a community organizer who, you know how eagles take care of their kids, right? They let them fly, they let them take risks until they are empowered to do so. But before jumping into the ground, they are ready to catch them if they're not yet able to do so. And I'm sharing this because that is the work of a community development worker. You start with people who you look at them with assets. And looking at newcomers who come here to Canada, we have to see them as assets, potential contributors to the community. We're here because we have something big to give. And that's how I did my work. I came from the Philippines. Since high school, I've been involved in organizing, community education, popular education, advocacy, and human rights. As early as high school, I've been doing that, and I matured during the period of martial law. So we had a president who was there for 20 years. We became active to defend human rights until I was imprisoned. I was tortured. I was imprisoned for 1 year, separated from my family and my children, who were at that time were only 2 years old and 3 years old. And I was sexually molested and physically hurt, and I thought I would be dead because we were confined in a secret military safe house. We were declared missing for 2 weeks until we were brought to prison. Because at that time, the writ of habeas corpus was suspended, so you can be arrested and imprisoned even if you are not proven guilty in court. After 1 year of imprisonment and 2 years of torture, we fought it out in the court. We won in the Supreme Court, and we were finally released on condition that we report because we were still considered guilty. After 5 years, we were proven to be innocent with no evidence at all. That was how our country was during that time. And so I continued with my work. I did a lot of popular education, community organizing. And for me, the learnings I got before I came to Canada is that while it is important to be in an elected position, while it is important to be in the leadership, which is, for example, being a CEO or an executive director or a board member, it is also important. I have 1 minute left. It is also important to organize and engage communities. And we've proven that during the martial law years through a People's Power Revolution, which was peaceful. 1 million people pressured the ousting of the dictatorship. So that to me is a very big lesson here in Calgary. So I worked with newcomers, I've worked with multiracial communities, and we tried to make a lot of innovations. We created a social enterprise where we hired newcomers, and we said, if you cannot get a job in Canada because you don't speak English, we created a social enterprise that asked, do you speak English as your first language? No. Do you have any Canadian experience? No. And so we say, if that's the case, you are hired. We created opportunities, and that's very important for community development and community organizing. We did the same thing when I was working in a settlement agency. We had to work with newcomers. And what we thought was, who are the best settlement practitioners in working with newcomers? The newcomers. Why? Because we have the lived experience, and we know the situation, we know the culture, and we believe in them. We cannot expect those who do not belong to our community to understand us unless we prove it. And we have to prove it in big numbers. That's why it's also important to organize. To organize because we have to engage people in big numbers. We have to recruit. So for example, those who are here, we are looking to strengthen our collaboration. But we shouldn't end up with people who are just in this room. We have a broad network of members and organizations, and that is very important. That's also how we addressed COVID. When we worked around the strategy for lessening the number of people who are infected with COVID, what did we do? We worked with those who have been infected with COVID. But what did they say? Yeah, I need a few more, maybe one more minute. What did we say? First, we should thank those who were infected with COVID because they risked their lives. We were able to get food. We were able to have meat, right? The meat plant workers. So instead of treating them as victims of COVID, we treat them as our heroes who saved us, who gave us the things we need in our lives, food and medicine and health. So we thank them rather than we considered them as clients. We also decided to give them food packages that will keep them at home for 2 weeks, and food that is culturally accessible. So these ideas, we also came up with the idea of a multilingual hotline so that they could not get out of their homes. And having a multilingual hotline, the idea came from the people themselves, the victims themselves. What I'm saying here is every time we come up with solutions, we have to ask those who are directly impacted. And we have to start with what people can do as contributors. So I think that is the big lesson that I have here, that I have learned, and maybe I think I will end up with a question, right? How do we sustain and broaden our ability to engage and organize people in order for us to have a voice as Asian Canadians? We know that the Black community is very well organized. The Indigenous community has also been very active and have been recognized, but the Asians are not that recognized yet, and we are not that united as of now. And that is the reason why we're here. Maybe we could do something across Alberta. One last addition I have is, let us not stay in the cities and the urban centers. Let us try to broaden our links to the rural areas. And we have a few rural community organizations that are here because, for example, in the Filipino community, we now have a province-wide network. We have several leaders who are here. So this is not just Edmonton. This is Edmonton and area. Let us reach out to those who are outside of our own circles. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you know, we have more community dialogues in other cities in Alberta that's coming up. Edmonton is the first one. So if you have folks in other parts of Alberta that want to take part in these dialogues, please reach out to us and we will welcome them as well. Last but not least, Cesar, over to you.
Okay.
Oui.
Well, thank you. You know, Marichu's so humble, but I should mention this, that in 2021, she was awarded as Citizen of the Year in Calgary, the first woman of color to be recognized for the work. So, President's breakthrough, right? Well, to add to what Marichu has been saying, I think the Filipino community in Alberta is one of the fastest growing. We have around 200,000 Albertans of Filipino descent in Alberta alone, and almost 90,000 or more of that in Edmonton, right? So when you talk about 45%, right, so the Filipino community is a big part of that as well. The first recorded Filipino presence in Canada was in between late 1890s to early 1910s in British Columbia, around Victoria area, right? In Alberta, and again, this is part of the archive problem where we don't have a lot of actual data and information. But from anecdotes, one of the first waves of Filipinos landing in Alberta in the late 50s and early 60s to mid 60s were teachers, right? And many of them were recruited as teachers, but they couldn't actually teach in the public school systems. So what happened was the First Nation reserves invited them to teach. So many of our elders now in Edmonton and Calgary, they're now in their early 80s and some in their early 90s, were teachers, Filipino teachers who ended up teaching in many of the reserves in Alberta. And from the people that we met from those First Nations were saying that they were the aunties of many of the First Nation students who became surrogate parents and were credited for helping them survive many traumatic experiences, right? Again, those are stories that need to be captured, right? So one of the things that I want to say is that for me personally, I've been working in Alberta's, in Calgary's nonprofit world for many years, many decades. Work on the funding side. So I worked with the Calgary Foundation as well as with the United Way of Calgary. But during those times, and Teresa knows this very well, many of the funders were not supportive and providing resources to what they call ethnocultural organizations, because they thought that we were just niche audiences. Right? So when I was at the foundation, for instance, I asked our staff to do a mapping of where the grants were going, and lo and behold, less than 10% of the funds were going east of Calgary. And do you know who lives in the eastern part of Calgary? People like us, right? So there was an implicit bias, sometimes explicit, but implicit bias in many of the institutions to provide support for people of color, right? People who, maybe they're thinking that our work is not good enough to be supported, right? Or that we are only impacting our own very special group of people. But, how large is the Chinese community in Calgary compared to one neighborhood, right? So I think a big part of our work needs to be around advocacy. We need to surface our stories and learn from them. We always talk about lived experience, but I would like to add one description to that. It should be lived and examined experiences. It needs to be shared, but we also need to derive lessons from those stories so that we could actually use them to advocate for change that can impact a larger part of our community, right? One of the things that we did last year was to bring out these stories from rural Filipino community organizations and create an actual set of strategies out of that. And we asked one of the participants here to provide a copy. We came out with a strategy paper called Spectra, right? So if you're interested, it's an analysis of issues of Filipinos in rural Alberta, but out of the issues was the creation and development of a set of strategies. And a big part of the set of strategies is collaboration, right? So I think it's important for us to really start working across the divides. More than 20 years ago, Teresa, myself, and a few others helped establish the Asian Heritage Foundation of Southern Alberta and the Ethnocultural Council of Calgary, which became powerful platforms for doing, and you were there as part of the Youth Council. And it's important that we find ways in which we could work together and identify some of those key places and points of cooperation, whether in terms of sharing our stories more broadly, but also on specific advocacies, like, for instance, bringing our stories into the public curriculum as examples. Anyway, I'll stop there, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Dear friends, dear guests, you can see the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience on this panel. And I am sure that there's a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and experience here amongst all of you as well. So maybe I can throw out a question, and I'll invite our panel to answer the question. And for those of you who want to jump in as well, feel free. And then after that, we'll also open the floor for any questions or comments that you may have. So the question that I would like to ask, and actually it's a little bit coming off of what Mary Chu and Seja said, because I'm so excited about the idea of an Asian People's Power Revolution. So you were talking about in the Philippines how you have a People's Power Revolution. And I'm just adding the Asian word in front of it, because I'm like, what can we do, to come together, to actually come to that tipping point where it's like, okay, we need to build a collective power to change the narrative, to regain control of the narrative, to say that we are Canadians, that we contribute to Canada, that we are an asset and not a liability. And that we have a role to play to shift the narratives. So the question is, what can we do to create this revolution? How, and to Mary Chu's point, so there's two questions: how to sustain and broaden the ability for us to organize, to have a voice as Asian Canadians. Can I just share, maybe, yeah. Okay. Can I just share something? First of all, it cannot happen within 1 year. In our case, for example, it took me 15 years of lots of challenges when organizing there was illegal. To gather more than 3 people in a public place was illegal. But I think the point here is we have to identify our challenges and find innovative ways of getting over it. And it will take, how many years have been doing ethnocultural work? She talks about more than 4 decades. I've been here for 3 decades, and it's still no significant change. But I think what we need to see are the small victories, the small advancement that we're doing. I'll get the example of rural Alberta, the Filipinos in rural Alberta. It's only a 3-year-old organization that started with 5 rural communities. After 3 years, it has now covered 52 rural municipalities. This is one board from Spruce Grove and Stony Plain. We have the Leduc and Beaumont area. So I think we just have to look collectively what we have all done together. You haven't had a chance to share what you have already done. And we need to put this all together and see the connections. But let's aim for
more than 1 year. We really have to be patient. Combine organizing, education, engagement, and coalition building. And most importantly, have a voice in policy making, whether that's in government, public institutions. And so we combine all the different strategies. This document, SPECTRA, stands for Sustaining People's Empowerment in Cities and Towns of Rural Alberta. That's what SPECTRA stands for. It has some elements of the strategy and challenges and the little victories that we can do. Anyway, that's my piece.
Do we have...
Yeah, just
okay.
Teresa has a comment, and then we can go to the audience.
Okay.
Very interesting question. And you got me, I wrote down 2 words, Anne-Marie, power and pain. Pain, yes. So I'm also the chair of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, which is a Crown corporation. The only Crown corporation that for over 30 years did not receive Canadian budget. By the way, this is a Crown corporation that existed because of the Japanese internment redress. So the Japanese community, when they received the redress, they donated $12 million to create the Canadian Race Relations Foundation to address human rights. And then the government sat on it for a decade, and then they matched it and created an endowment and created this foundation. But they never funded it. So initially, the interest was okay. And then after, a couple of financial crises, when Anne-Marie and I first joined, we only had $500,000. And then, you don't remember this at CISAR? We did a consultation, and then this woman said, you mean they have less money than my organization, so what can they do? But anyways, cut the story short, now we'll be receiving $9 million each year, moving forward, starting this year. But the reason I talk about pain and power, to answer your question, you look at the Jewish community, you look at the Muslim community, you look at the Black community, you look at the Indigenous community. As the chair of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, I sat through 5 hours for 2 days, 5 hours each day, with the Prime Minister. He was sitting there from 10 until 3 in the afternoon with the Muslim community, the second day with the Jewish community, listening to them. So I was thinking at that time, when is our turn? So that was 3 years ago. And then they got the envoy on anti-Semitism, an envoy on anti-Islamophobia. So again, I thought, when is our turn? Our turn is not coming, by the way. So, so I think that what I'm trying to say is, so I've been asking this question. Why is it the media and our government and everybody can continue to play ignorance, and they are also truly ignorant about anti-Asian racism, which is real and live in this country? And that's, someone told me, because we cannot identify our collective pain. So I use the word pain, but what is our collective struggle? We have yet to define our collective struggle. Okay? So the other is power. And so thank you for the statistics. So 45%, elections coming up, use your power, right? So as a former elected official, each time after an election, the candidate receives a report. That report tells us who voted and who did not vote. We don't know who you voted for, but we know if you voted or not. And then you know what? With technology, I can actually, within an hour, and separate by last name. So I know whether the Korean voted, I know whether the Vietnamese voted, I know whether the Hong Kong or the mainland voted. So we don't know who you voted for, but we know whether you came out to vote. So keep in mind how to use that power, how to use that number, right? Keep it short. That was short.
Thank you. So reactions from the floor. We have Hugh Tran from the president of the Vietnamese Community Association in Edmonton.
Thank you. Hi there, my name is Hugh Tran. I'm the recent president of the Edmonton Viet Association. First of all, I have a story to tell, and I hope I don't bore you with that story. Before that, I agree with the lady 100% that, and go back to Anne-Marie, that the Asians' general nature, okay? We work hard, we don't complain. We would fight if somebody invaded our home, pretty much about it. We don't bother anybody. And we're kind of more submissive too. I agree with that. So, like all the refugees from Vietnam, I escaped from Vietnam in 1981 after the communists took over north from north, took over south. And I came to Canada in 1982, worked hard like everybody else, and went back to school. And I was 19, 20 years old, an adult, not a kid, so I managed to take care of myself and went back to school. So I actually joined the police force in 1989. I was a police member of Edmonton Police Service for 32 years, from 89 to 2020, and I retired after, actually during COVID, a lot of things coming up there. So I think we, as refugees, coming a long way. And the time that I started in 1989, we only have 3 Asian members in the police force, the whole Edmonton, okay? 3 of them are Chinese. One of them are from Hong Kong, so he speak Chinese, Cantonese. The other 2 are from different countries. They didn't even speak Chinese. And I was the first Vietnamese member back in 1982. Well, and we, I was among the other 3 minority members as well. And, well, we did face a lot of racial slurs against, from the public, or even the members among our own colleagues. But they pretend as a joke, right? It's more serious outside, like when we deal with the people, when we arrest them, they mean it, right? Because we cause more like inconvenience for them. So then now, yeah, we did come a long way. So now all the different community, like Chinese, Korean and Japanese, we do have a few dozens of members, police members from different community. So my well, I have no regret of my career, that I would do it again if I have a second chance, a second life, or whatever. I did save a lot of lives, people's life, and some of them don't even know who I was after they got, they got sober from drugs or alcohol in the hospital. And my question to your organization is, what bothered me the most during COVID is the video clip of like 300 200 or 300 pounds white or black male beat up an Asian lady because they think she was Chinese, and she turned out to be Filipino, or a lady were actually killed in the LRT or the bus by or burned alive by some insane guy. And our justice system, I always call it as a joke, because we got too much. Well, we appreciate that because we have so much freedom, right? And sometimes but over my years of experience, we even talk among ourselves, among our members, that the rights the bad guys or the criminals have more rights than the victims. So that's why we call it a joke, right? Because we got so many rights. So my question to your organization is, what can we do to change that? Through education, through seminars. And I noticed that my colleagues and I in association noticed that we, as Asian community, we tend to look after our own community, right? There's Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese. We don't look too far like you guys, okay? So I think that could be changed.
Thank you. Thank you. I went near you because I'm excited to answer your question. But if I may, for the panel, just a quick one. This is why we're doing this now. I think someone also shared with me that this is the first that we're doing this as an intercultural dialogue on our issues in anti-racism and other cultural issues that we experience. So with that, we will be breaking out into groups in a bit. We're just going to give the floor to another reaction from our audience, and then we will group ourselves, right? Because we don't want to keep you. It's 7:45. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Manny Bautista, but I'm giving it to a friend because he has a better message than mine. Attorney Gregorio, you have the floor.
I don't think I have the better version of what you're going to say. Anyway, it was mentioned earlier about how do we regain the narrative in Canada about about Asian hate. But the thing is, I never believed that there was really a narrative that was won by the Asians in the first place. So we're still struggling and, putting up all our efforts towards there. But I'm thinking that maybe we would like to take the inspiration from the Al Jazeera experience. There was a time that the Western media has basically dominated the story about the Arab conflict. So Al Jazeera came out as a counter thesis to that Western media. Probably it's about time. I guess I've heard someone who said that the Japanese community has money and they have donated something like $12 million. Did I hear it right? Probably what I'm saying right now is like a pitching idea for the Asian communities here. Why don't we start an Asian national media that will cut through all these biases, address immediately all these stories against Asian, and provide its own investigative journalism stories, and get all these Asian stories to the forefront of national conversation. So, also I am gonna have to follow up on what ACCT said. You got to use your power to vote because we want to be seen. We don't just want to be present. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. And one of those important platforms where we can be felt is the government, because it's only through legislative policies that somehow all these anti-Asian narrative will somehow be addressed through legislation. Say, how about stronger legislation against discrimination? So probably those are things that after this we may probably get into a more realistic context and how to go about it. So that's it.
Thank you very much. We have one last from the Korean community, Mr. Lee, the president of the Korean community in Edmonton. And then please prepare for the breakout groups, panel.
안녕하세요. Dear distinguished guests, to begin, I would like to express my deep gratitude to everyone who is here today. I'm Roger Lee, the president of a Federation of Korean Canadian Associations. It is an honor to have opportunity to introduce our organization at such a meaningful place. Founded in 1978, the Federation of Korean Canadian Associations represent the voices of Korean residents across Canada, protect them rights and interests, and promote Korean culture and traditions. We are working closely with 25 other local Korean associations in Canada to grow together with the Korean community of about 250,000 people. The main mission of our organization can be summarized in 3 ways. First, it is about strengthening the integration and cooperation of the Korean community. Second, it is to support the next generation of Koreans by empowering them to dream bigger, thus contribute Canadian society. Third, it is to promote Korean culture and tradition to Canadian society and strengthen the relationship between the two countries. At the end, we are working on various programs and projects, including the following. Conferences to promote the rights and interests of Korean adoptees in Canada and support the activities of adoption groups. Anti-racism and anti-hate crime conferences for seniors. Seminars on promoting political power in Korean society through the discovery and organized development of next generation politicians. And health and pension seminars for seniors were held. Korean community is an important part of Canadian society, and I believe the great outcomes can be achieved if we cooperate. Addition, I believe that we can create a richer and brighter future through exchanges and cooperation with the other ethnic groups also. I hope today will be an important opportunity for us to share latest ideas and cooperate. The Federation of Korean Canadian Associations will continue to our best to help Canada become a better society, and will be with you. Lastly, I take this opportunity to offer my sincere appreciation to all those involved in allowing this wonderful event to happen, and of course for having me here today. I wish all of you all good health and happiness. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are amazing projects by the Federation of the Korean Communities.